Hello teacher, I'm so happy that you have decided to check this video out. And in this video, we are going to learn about the design and educational technology, which is our first lesson for the module 2. So let us start with this question. How do you usually plan lessons to teach in class? Well, I know that you are already in third year, so I believe that you have already tried creating a lesson plan. So how do you usually plan lessons to teach in class? Okay, maybe you list down. Of course, you start with your objectives. You include there the subject matter and particularly on your procedure and how you are going to teach your lesson. You incorporate activities that are interesting for your students. Am I right? So yeah, every teacher, each of us have different ways of teaching lessons to our students. Okay, next question is, what do teachers need to do to make the learning experience more meaningful, exciting, and challenging? So what do teachers need to do? Well, of course, as we are talking already with the lesson plan, teachers need to carefully plan and design the lesson and teaching environment. So why do we need to, as teachers, why do we need to carefully plan and design our teaching and learning environment? Why? What's the tendency if we fail to prepare as teachers? We fail to prepare a lesson plan. The tendency is that the teaching strategy that we can use in our lesson is just purely what? Lecture, discussion, right? So what do you think is better? The teaching methodology or the teaching strategy of just pure lecture and discussion, or the teaching strategy that involves different activities, differentiated instruction? So of course, we always have to choose the differentiated instruction, because why? We teachers have to offer more. We need to look for learning strategies that are effective enough. I'm not saying that the lecture discussion is ineffective. Yes, lecture discussion is effective, but not enough. Because, lecture discussion, the students are just going to what? To listen to their teachers. So, the retention rate of the learners must be, what? 5%. Because the sense of hearing is the only sense that is involved in learning. Okay? So, unlike if the students are involved in a different activities, well, we can assure that the quality of education that we provide to our learners is effective enough. So we need to what? We need to prepare a lesson. We need to design a lesson that is more than what is expected of us. Okay? So also in planning an ineffective lesson plan, we need to make sure that our activities are all interactive, and we must, our course is educational technology for teaching and learning in the elementary grades. So we really need also to think of those educational technologies that we can possibly incorporate to our lessons. Okay, so we have here an image. Well, we will try to define what is instructional design. When you hear the word instructional design, what comes into your mind first? Well, for me, and I believe that instructional design, the simpler term for this, or the thing that we can relate to this term, is actually lesson planning. Right? Because in lesson plan, it is actually a design. So let us try to define, to clarify the word instructional design. So it says here on the left box, if you can see, instructional design is defined as what? As a set of events that facilitates learning. And also on the right side, on the right box, it says that instructional design is a creative pattern. So what? If instructional design is a set of events in a creative pattern, then as we can also observe with the lesson plan, a lesson plan is actually what? It involves a set of events, starting with writing with the objectives. You write with the objectives, and specifically on the procedure part, you include what? You include drill. You start with the preliminary activities like prayer, drill, motivation, and after that you provide activities, you proceed to analysis, so on and so forth. So we can say that lesson plan is an instructional design. Okay, let us define instructional design in a different way. So instructional design is the what? It's a systematic process of translating general principles of learning and instruction into plans for educational technology and learning tasks. Let's focus on this word, the translating of general principles of learning. So again, you're already third year. I believe that you have already been exposed to the different learning principles. So one of these learning principles is the laws of learning. If you can still remember, the major laws of learning involves what? Law of readiness, law of exercise, law of effect, law of primacy, recency, intensity, freedom. So what? Another example is that when we are going to when we are considering the law of readiness, so that is why we are incorporating what? The drill part on our lesson plan, because that is one way to ensure that our learners are already, their attention is already into you as their teacher. So also another learning principle is that the learning is activated by the learner himself. That is why we need to provide them with what? Interesting activities. Okay. Also in teaching, one principle is that after teaching, there should always be evaluation. Okay, we should always assess our learners. So there are lots of general principles when it comes to learning, and I know it's easy for us to remember, but we cannot remember all at the same time. It's just that we need to be more, what do you call this one? I'm sorry, I forgot the term. We need to be, as teachers, we need to be innovative. Yes, we cannot remember all of the learning strategies, but one at a time. Or we need to remember them. We need to consider what are those tasks that we can incorporate, or what is effective, or what is needed at that time, of what we need of this particular time in teaching. So for the next slide, we have here the 5 A's of designing a learning and teaching environment. So first we have here is acquaint, second is analyze, third A is to assemble, fourth A is to arrange, and fifth A is to assess. So let's start with acquaint. So as teachers, what do we need to do if we mean acquaint? So as teachers, we must communicate clearly with our students what knowledge, skills, and attitudes are expected of them to demonstrate after completing a particular lesson. Okay, it's very important for us to let them know of what is our objective, because in that way, they will try their best to participate in all of the activities that you are going to them, because they already know that there is something that you expect from them at the end of the lesson. So it's not just you are going to jump directly into giving activities, but first things first, we need to let them know what is expected of them. Okay, so first A for designing a teaching and learning environment is we acquaint our learners. Okay, next A is analyze. As teachers, we need to determine or analyze our students' prior knowledge, skills, and attitude. So what is the importance of analyzing our students' prior knowledge? It's because we cannot just jump directly into a new lesson without making sure that our learners have this prior knowledge. We cannot just jump into teaching multiplication without making sure that the learners have acquired or have understood the concept of addition. Because, diba, multiplication is just a repeated addition. So we need to really check the prior knowledge of our learners. Still, law of readiness is involved in this second A, in analyzing our students' prior knowledge. Okay, so first A is acquaint, second is analyze. The third A is assemble. So as teachers, we must make an inventory. We must list down the existing human and non-human resources that we can use in delivering our lesson. Okay, we are already in the 21st century teaching and learning, environment. And so as a teacher, it does not mean that you must be only the source of information. So we have lots of more knowledgeable others that we can find in our community. Let's say, for example, you are handling subject science, and so your topic is on estuaries or on how to take good care of the environment or how to preserve the forest. So what? We have human resources in our community. You can contact a forester or an employee from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR. So that employee or that particular person can actually deliver a seminar to your students. So also for the non-human resources, well, you can make use of the laboratory. Science laboratories in your schools. So let's say, for example, you are discussing about blood vessels, and so you have science laboratory. You have microscopes in your science laboratory, so you can actually make use of that in delivering your lesson, not just simple lecture and discussion. Okay, the fourth A is to arrange. You need to plan the learning tasks well and in a logical manner so as not to confuse the students. So let's say when you are writing your lesson plan and you're considering your activities, balikan natin yung example natin kanina na your lesson is on, you have to make use of the microscope in your science laboratory, but you only have limited resources. So what can you do out of your limited resources, limited number of microscopes? You need to arrange, you need to carefully plan on, maybe you can give them by pair or by group activity. So, though not individually, but they all can still manipulate the microscope by group or by pair. You just need to make use of what you have. Okay, that is for the fourth A, which is arrange. And the 5A, the last A for designing your teaching and learning environment, is you need to assess. As teachers, we need to determine the methods for assessing or evaluating the students' learning outcomes. Okay, so why do we need to assess? Because that is one way of ensuring that we have really achieved our objectives, the objectives that we have written in our lesson plan. So let's say, for example, in our lesson plan objectives, we have written there, at the end of the lesson, the students must be able to identify the different parts of a microscope. And so your evaluation's instruction must also be identify the different parts of the microscope. So your objectives and your evaluation part of your lesson plan must be aligned. It should be aligned. Okay, so again, let's have a review. The 5 A's of designing a learning and teaching environment is: first is acquaint, next is analyze, next is assemble, fourth is arrange, and fifth is assess. Okay, so that's just a very short discussion, 15-minute discussion of your first lesson for the module 2, which is the design and educational technology. I hope you have learned something from this video. Okay, teachers, see you on the next video. We will talk about the next lessons of our module 2. Thank you so much and have a nice day.